friends, how are you? It's Andrea here. Welcome to the Thursday live training. Today we are going to be talking about objections, the psychology behind objections, how to address them, and also why you may be actually receiving a lot of objections in your appointments. So if you're live, give me a hashtag live. If you are on replay, give me a hashtag replay. Be sure and share it with any agent friends that you may have that might need some help when it comes to actually handling objections. Let me know where you're tuning in from so that I know where my audience is. So who is this training for? It is for all insurance agents. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the business, whether you're brand new or old. We all can always improve on how we handle or address objections. So take some notes, because some of the things that I am going to be talking about today may be a little advanced. I always like to know the why behind what we do, and so I'm really going to be diving into the why of objections, and so we can fully understand what's going on. A little bit about me. I've been an agent for a little over 10 years, like 11 years. I've sold everything from final expense to term. I've done employee benefits, annuities, you name it, I've sold it, except for Medicare, and I'm actually going out this open enrollment for Medicare. So that's a little bit about me. I've been blessed to be in the industry for a long time now, and it has afforded me a lot of opportunities that I would not have had I not been in the insurance business. So let's dive into exactly why are we getting objections? Where are they stemming from? And so I'm going to try not to go too deep. I am kind of nerdy, and so I do like psychology. And so let's talk a little bit about the psychology behind objections, because I think that if we can understand where they're coming from, that we have a better understanding of how to address them. Sure, I mean, I can give you a one-all fix, but if something different comes up, I want you to have like the framework in your mind of how that you can address this and overcome it gracefully. So within our brain, we have three parts, and they all have a specific job. And the one I'm going to be talking about today is the part that is about keeping us safe and about survival. And so let's think about what happens when we're meeting someone for an insurance appointment, especially when we're running those off of leads like perhaps life insurance. So we have a belief system within ourselves, like money beliefs, relationship beliefs, just a belief system that we believe to be true. And so within the brain, we have the part that is designed to keep us safe. And so anytime that we feel that our belief system is being threatened, this part of the brain, it gets alerted, right? And so change always can be uncomfortable, because we're going into a territory that we're not familiar with. And so sometimes, because the thing about the brain is it doesn't know the difference between perceived threat versus real threat. So when we as the agent are threatening the customer's belief system, perhaps, they don't feel like they have the money to afford this, and here we are showing them that they need it, so suddenly their belief system is being threatened. That part of the brain alerts them. Now, the thing about that is that the fear center is just supposed to be like, hey, there's danger, yield a minute, and then proceed on. But we as humans, we sometimes don't yield, but we stop when we get that feeling of being threatened, right? I mean, how many have actually stop doing something because it was a little scary. Instead of just relaxing, taking some deep breaths, and pushing on into that next, the growth part. So that's what's happening sometimes within the brain, and that when we get objections. So we have threatened their belief system. One, maybe they don't need it. Two, maybe they don't have the money for it. They're going to live forever. All the common objections that we sometimes get, our presentation has threatened that. So they start feeling a certain way because the brain is doing its job. It's here's a threat. And instead of relaxing and realizing that it's not a real threat, they try and stop it, and that's sometimes where objections can come from. It's not that they're not interested, it's just the opposite. They are interested, because if they weren't interested, they wouldn't feel it as a threat. So that fear center of the brain is being triggered. So what can we do? Well, why is it being triggered? Well, the first reason why that it could be triggered is that they don't really trust us, because we haven't taken the time in the warm-up to really build rapport. And think about when you go to buy a car, and that salesperson, they are a little more aggressive than we're used to. So we automatically throw up that wall because we don't trust them. Well, if we as agents haven't taken enough time to build rapport with our clients so that we have built that know, like, and trust factor the best we can within a short amount of time, that fear part of the brain is going to be a little more heightened, and it's going to be easier to trigger. So you need to make sure that you've slowed it down and actually built some rapport with your client, so that we can try and make sure that we don't trigger them. The second thing is when the person hasn't received enough information, because the brain is built to seek out the answer, right? So if there's still some things that are up in question about the policy, about what we're doing, and you haven't addressed all of those, that's going to be another reason for that fear center to get triggered, because it's there's questions I don't know the answer to. There's questions I don't know the answer to. And so we want to make sure that in our presentation that we are presenting all the information that needs to be presented, the procedure we're going to go through, what's going to happen, what the policy, the benefits, how can they use it, anything that they may be seeking information about, go ahead and address that in your presentation so that there's no room for them to be needing more answers. Sorry, y'all, I had to make some notes on that one because that is a little deep. So why do some agents get more objections than other agents? Well, just like with our client, the belief system. So you have to ask yourself, what is your belief system? Are you expecting to get objections? We know what we focus on, our energy goes there and it expands. So if we go into the appointment automatically expecting that they're going to ask a lot of questions, throw up a lot of objections, chances are we're going to get objections because we're so focused on those objections. So you have to shift your focus into that they are going to need what we have to offer. I'm going to provide them what they need, and it's going to be a smooth appointment. Do you truly believe that you have the answer or the solution to their problem? I mean, if not, if you don't truly believe in what you're going in there to sell, it'll come off in your presentation, that self-doubt and lack of confidence. And that's going to lead to them having questions, which is going to lead to more objections. And this one is one that I've had to work on over the years, and that is projecting my belief on the client. And what I mean by that is, sometimes, I think I've talked about it in other videos, like my belief that this might not be the best option for them, or there might be another solution, like based on my personal money beliefs or beliefs. Like, I cannot project my beliefs on the client, and we have to be careful of that, because if we have a certain set of money beliefs that don't match their set of beliefs, then that's going to create an issue, and they're going to pick up on that, and there's going to be some objections. So you do the presentation, you keep your belief system out as much as you can, and let them decide on if it's a good fit for them. And like I talked about earlier, the focus also has to do with the way we're thinking, because our thoughts lead to releasing hormones, and the hormones lead to emotions, right? So if I'm all nervous, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to ask me so many questions, and I get nervous, and I go into the appointment, so I'm already like feeling some anxiety, and like it's going to come across in my presentation. So I have to go in with the thought of where I want this appointment to go, so that when I present in a way that is confident, that I know what's going on, and it doesn't leave questions in the client's mind. Another reason why you might be getting, or an agent might be getting, objections is that they're rushing through that warm up and they're not building enough rapport. And you can tell when you don't have rapport with a person, because it's going to be like a more one-ended conversation. They're not going to be as open, and there are ways to build rapport, and I can do a training on that. But you want to make sure that you're in rapport with that client. I always used a simple kind of strategy. I always looked, when I walked in the house, always looked around for something that I could connect with them on. And perhaps it was usually, for me, it was family, because everybody wants to talk about their family. They want to talk about themselves. And if you see pictures of their family on the wall, I mean, start asking some questions, and trust me, you will get in rapport really quickly when you let them talk about their family, and you share a little bit about your family, and y'all connect over family. And also, like, then you have a full understanding of their values, like that their family is important to them, protecting their family is important to them. You can pick up a lot of that in your rapport building part of your presentation. So I love to talk about people's family in my warm-up. And if they don't trust you because you haven't warmed up enough, or you look like you're trying to avoid some conversations or avoid certain things, and you're being real salesy, and that trust isn't there, you're going to see that you have more objections. And so, but if you do see that the client is feeling a little resistant, just try and go back to something familiar, so that they'll relax and calm down before you go on with your presentation, because you want them in that relaxed state so that you can present to them and they're actually receiving what you're trying to present. A great way to handle objections is through storytelling. And I know I definitely did a training video in here about why stories help you overcome objections, about how they work with the mind, and it lowers, it connects with that logical side, and the client is, it's easier for the client to relate to what you're saying through a story than just through facts. So try and tell a story about something that has handled the objection. That's a great way. It's not threatening, and it works really, really well. But the main thing is, when you do get objections, you want to show some empathy and understanding, because if you understand what's going on inside their brain, like they sincerely are feeling threatened by that change to their belief, like you've been there. You were there probably when you first got your insurance license. You were there the first time you door knocked. You were there the first time you made a cold call. So if you can realize what's going on inside of their brain and show them some empathy and some understanding of that, you understand where they're coming from on this, and what's your tonality and your physiology. Because if you come with an attitude when you're trying to overcome or handle the objection or address, however you want to put it, I don't really like the word overcome, because you're not trying to suppress, you're wanting to address what is going on in their mind. So when you come from a place of understanding and empathy, it's going to show up in your tone, in the way that you speak to them, and your physiology. I mean, if you're stiff and your arms are crossed, I mean, and you're not open in the way you're sitting, all of that's going to convey over to the client. So you got to be careful of the tone you're using with them when you start trying to address the objection, and also your posture and your physiology. Y'all, I know that this is probably might not have been what you were looking for or expecting, but I really want you to understand objections, and not just like, well, like I want you to understand where they're coming from, so that you have knowledge to address them when they come up. So there's also some strategies that you can use with objections. There's like 16 of them. They're called sleight of mouth, but I'm not going to go through all 16 of them. I'm going to go through just a few of them that I think that would be helpful for you, and it's just questions that you would ask. And so the first one is, it's called the reality strategy. And so it goes back to that belief system that they have. And so you're going to ask them, how specifically, those are the words, how specifically, if they say they can't afford it. So how specifically can't you afford the policy, or how specifically can you not? And then wait for them to answer. This is a really good strategy to use when you have, money ones. How you want them to start thinking, how do they know that they can't afford it, right? And I did see in another Facebook group a girl that had a really good way she overcome objections on the money side, where she had to do a drawing for visual learners, where in the middle you put all the bills, and then on the right and the left you have the husband and the wife and their income, and let them see that if something did happen, that it would be a bigger situation than just a monthly payment. So the second strategy is called model of the world. And so what you're doing in this strategy is you're letting them understand that their belief is not the same of the world. So, like if they said they can't afford it, it might not seem you can afford it, but many people have found value for the money when a claim was filed. And so you're just wanting them to reframe the way they're thinking about it into how can they afford it. Another one, just like I said before, is a metaphor, and that's just telling a story to help you overcome the objection. And I always have some stories that I use in every appointment. Honestly, some of the stories I use before I ever even get the objection to prevent objections, especially on the one like, I have time to get this later, because with my dad, I had written him a life insurance policy, and within a couple of months he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Luckily he went on to live 3.5 more years, but my point always is that money doesn't buy, health does, and we never know what tomorrow holds. So just because you're healthy today doesn't mean you're going to be healthy tomorrow. And the worst thing that could happen is that you want to get a policy, but your health won't allow you to get the policy. So like I always tell that story early on into my appointment, and like I don't get objections about now's not a good time or I can wait, because I've already put that sense of urgency early on without just coming out and telling them. So you can ask them specifically how they can look for other options if they're saying they don't have the money. So how specifically can we look in your budget and find room for this policy? Like what specifically, how specifically? Those are really good opening questions just to get them to start thinking and get that conversation opened up. You can give them a counter example, like invert the belief on them. If they think they can't afford the insurance, you can simply say, isn't it possible in your budget to find a way to afford it? And again, it's all going to be about tonality when you're saying these types of things back to the client. If you're saying it with attitude, and I know that there's times where we want to come across with attitude because we've had attitude the whole appointment, but you have to really be careful about your tonality. So if we know that the client, they've talked a lot about their family, so we know that they value their family. We can go with how much value do you put on the security for your family, financial security. Like we can shift the focus over to the value and hit them where we know it's going to hurt. Especially if you're in good rapport with them. You want to ask it in the form of a question because it's going to soften that blow, for lack of a better word. Another one is you can use consequence. So if they say they can't afford it, can you afford to keep living without protection? You can suggest a negative consequence that would come from that belief. Because if they hold on to the belief that they can't afford it, their family could go unprotected and be in a bad situation. So you can suggest that negative consequence that would come from holding on to that belief and not being able to afford it, or the consequence of needing to think about it. Like you could die thinking about it and your family is left unprotected. And can you afford for that to happen? Like I said, there's like 16 different strategies. it's called sleight of mouth. It's really based on psychology and overcoming objections, and it's really helpful. Chances are you're using some of them, but you don't even realize you're using them, because we have ways that we overcome our objections. So what we've covered today is understanding the psychology behind objections, like really understanding what's going on in the client's mind that might be leading to that objection, how they may be feeling threatened because of a threat to their belief system, and that it's our job to get them to relax and make sure that they have the answers that they need, on the understanding that the trust is there, the rapport is there. And let's take ownership in the objections. Like, what role are we playing in those objections happening? Are we expecting them? Are we going in with the wrong focus? Is our thought pattern not where it needs to be, and we're projecting in the appointment self-doubt, no confidence, lack of authority? Let's really take ownership in that, and listen to our voices in the appointments and see how we're playing a role in getting those objections. Are we building enough of trust? Are we slowing down in our warm-up to make sure that we're building that trust, and they really know us enough to trust us and like us, because people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And then the strategies that we can use to handle the objections. I think it was 6 strategies that I used. Hierarchy of criteria, asking more questions, called chunking down, consequence, telling them another consequence that comes from having that belief, using stories or metaphors, and just really watching our tone and offering some empathy and understanding about their objection, and trying to help them move through that fear that they're feeling into that growth phase. Because once they go from no protection to protection, they really have grown. And that's where we want to get them, is in that growth phase. So I'm sure you guys have seen, but I want to invite you. I am hosting a 5-day Facebook training for agents. It starts September 21st, every morning at 10 a.m. And we're talking about how to grow your business using social media with a strategy. And so I'll put the link to sign up in the comments, and it's going to be really good. 5 days, and the recordings will be here in the group in case you can't catch it live. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, be sure and drop them in the comments so I can answer them, because I do realize that it was a deeper training on objections than you normally see, especially since it was from the psychology standpoint of objections. So I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, be sure and drop it in the comments, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.